My sister shouted, "You're just a parasite dragging us down," then slammed the door and said, "Find somewhere else to suck off." So I packed my stuff and left. 2 weeks later, Mom called in tears. "Why did the creditors take the car?" I texted back, "Ask the parasite." That's when everything collapsed. I, 32M, was called a parasite by my sister. 2 weeks later, their world fell apart. I still remember the exact tone of her voice when she said it. That sharp, cutting edge that made every word feel like a slap. My sister stood in the doorway of what used to be our parents' house, her face twisted with frustration and something else I couldn't quite name at the time. Maybe contempt, maybe exhaustion. She told me I was just a parasite dragging the family down, that I needed to find somewhere else to suck off of. Then she slammed the door so hard the frame shook. I stood there for a moment, my bags already half-packed in my room, wondering how we'd gotten here. But I knew. I'd always known. The thing about being the quiet one, the one who keeps their head down and handles things behind the scenes, is that people forget you're doing anything at all. They see you at home, they see you available, and they assume you're freeloading. They don't ask questions. They don't want to know the answers. I'd moved back home 3 years ago after Dad's first heart attack. Mom called me in a panic, her voice breaking as she explained that Dad couldn't work anymore, that the medical bills were piling up, that they didn't know what to do. My sister lived 2 states away with her husband and their 2 kids. She had her own life, her own problems. I was single, working remotely as a software contractor, and I could be flexible. So I came home. At first, everyone was grateful. Mom hugged me tight and told me I was her blessing. Dad gripped my hand with what strength he had left and thanked me for being there. My sister called every week to check in, always asking if I needed anything, telling me how much she appreciated what I was doing. But gratitude has a short shelf life when people don't understand what you're actually doing. I took over everything. The bills, the mortgage, the insurance premiums, the medical expenses. I coordinated Dad's medications and doctor appointments. I drove Mom to the grocery store and made sure the house didn't fall apart. And yes, I paid for most of it. My contracting work paid well, and I'd been careful with money over the years. I had savings. I had investments. I had a financial cushion that most people my age would envy. But I didn't broadcast it. I didn't walk around announcing that I was covering 60% of the household expenses. I didn't tell my sister that I'd quietly paid off Dad's credit card debt or that I'd been making the car payments on Mom's vehicle for 2 years. I just did it because it needed to be done. Then Dad died last year. Sudden. Another heart attack, this one fatal. Mom fell apart, and I held everything together while my sister flew in for the funeral and stayed for 3 days before flying back to her life. She cried. She hugged Mom. She told me to take care of things, and then she left. 6 months after the funeral, my sister started coming around more often. Her marriage was rocky, she said. She needed to spend time with Mom, to heal, to reconnect with family. She'd show up every few weeks, stay for a weekend, and slowly I noticed her attitude shifting. She'd make little comments about how I was always home, always around. She'd ask Mom why I wasn't out dating or building a career like a normal person my age. She'd wonder aloud, just loud enough for me to hear, whether it was healthy for a grown man to be living with his mother. Mom would defend me at first, but my sister was persistent. She'd plant seeds of doubt, water them with concerned questions, and watch them grow. I could see it happening, but I didn't fight it. I figured the truth would speak for itself eventually. I was wrong. 3 months ago, my sister's husband filed for divorce. She showed up at the house with 2 suitcases and her kids, announcing that she needed to stay for a while until she got back on her feet. Mom was thrilled. Her daughter was home, her grandchildren were there, and suddenly the house felt alive again. I didn't mind. I made space. I helped with the kids. I kept paying the bills. But my sister saw something different. She saw me as competition for Mom's attention. She saw me as a reminder of her own failures, her own inability to keep her marriage together. And most of all, she saw me as an easy target for her frustration. The comments got worse. I was lazy. I was taking advantage. I needed to get a real job and move out. Mom started to believe her, or at least stopped defending me as strongly. My sister was louder, more present, more demanding of attention. I was the quiet one who handled things in the background, and in the war for narrative control, silence loses. Then came the day she called me a parasite. I'd been in my room working when she barged in without knocking. She started yelling about how I needed to contribute more, how I was dragging the family down, how mom was stressed because of me. I tried to explain that I was paying for most things, but she didn't want to hear it. She told me I was delusional, that I was making excuses, that I needed to leave. She said mom agreed with her, but was too kind to say it herself. That last part hit differently. I went downstairs and found mom in the kitchen. I asked her directly if she wanted me to leave. She looked uncomfortable, glanced toward where my sister was standing in the hallway, and said maybe it would be good for me to get my own place, to start fresh, to live my own life. She said it gently, like she was doing me a favor. I nodded. I didn't argue. I went back upstairs and finished packing. My sister followed me up and delivered her final speech from the doorway. The Parasite line. The doors slam. The command to find somewhere else to suck off of. I left that afternoon. I'd already been looking at apartments casually, knowing this was probably coming. I found a place across town, signed a lease that week, and moved in. I didn't tell them where I was going. I just left. And then I made some calls. The mortgage on the house was in Dad's name originally, but I'd been the one making payments for the last 2 years. I'd set up automatic transfers from my account to cover it. I canceled those transfers. The car mom drove was financed, and I'd been making those payments too. I canceled those as well. The insurance premiums on the house and the vehicles, the utility bills that were on autopay through my credit card, the subscriptions and services, I went through everything methodically and removed myself from anything connected to that house. I wasn't angry. I was just done. I did leave one thing in place. The life insurance policy Dad had taken out years ago had listed me as the beneficiary, but after he died, I'd quietly used that money to set up a trust fund for my sister's kids' education. Nobody knew about it except the lawyer who handled the paperwork. That stayed. The kids didn't deserve to suffer for their mother's decisions. Everything else, though, I walked away from clean. The first week was quiet. I settled into my apartment, reorganized my work schedule, and enjoyed the peace. No drama. No accusations. No walking on eggshells. I didn't contact mom or my sister, and they didn't contact me. I assumed they were relieved I was gone. The second week, my phone started ringing. Mom called first. I didn't answer. She called again. And again. She left voicemails asking me to call her back, saying we needed to talk, that something was wrong with the bills. I listened to them, but didn't respond. Then my sister called. Her voicemail was panicked. She said creditors were calling the house, that someone had come to repossess mom's car, that the mortgage company was demanding immediate payment. She said mom was crying and didn't understand what was happening. She asked where I was and why I wasn't helping. I deleted the voicemail. Mom called again the next day. This time her voice was thick with tears. She asked why the creditors had taken the car. She asked what was happening with the house. She said she thought everything was fine, that she didn't understand how things had gotten so bad so quickly. I texted back 5 words, asked the Parasite. Then I blocked both their numbers. Over the next few days, I pieced together what was happening through a mutual cousin who reached out. Apparently, mom had no idea I'd been covering most of the expenses. She thought Dad's life insurance and his pension were handling everything. My sister had convinced her that the bills were manageable, that they were fine, that I was just living there rent-free and taking advantage of the situation. When the payments stopped, reality hit fast. The mortgage was 3 months behind within weeks once the grace period ended and late fees piled up. The car was repossessed. The insurance lapsed. The utilities sent disconnection notices. Mom finally opened the bills she'd been ignoring, the ones my sister told her not to worry about, and saw the amounts due. My sister tried to cover things with her own money, but she was broke from the divorce. She'd been living off mom's perceived financial stability, assuming there was a cushion that didn't exist. She'd been planning to stay in that house for months, maybe years, while she figured out her next move. Now she was scrambling. They tried to reach me through other family members. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone suddenly had my number and a message to pass along. Mom was devastated. My sister was desperate. They needed to talk to me. They needed my help. They wanted to apologize. I didn't respond to any of it. My cousin, the one who'd given me the updates, asked me point blank if I was really going to let mom lose the house. I told her the truth then, all of it. How much I'd been paying. How long I'd been holding things together. How I'd been called a parasite and thrown out. How mom had sided with my sister without ever asking for my side of the story. My cousin went quiet for a long time. Then she asked what I wanted to happen now. I told her I wanted them to figure it out themselves. I'd spent 3 years sacrificing my own life to keep theirs stable, and the moment it became inconvenient for them, they turned on me. I was done being invisible. I was done being taken for granted. She said she understood, but she asked me to think about Mom. She said Mom was a victim in this too, that my sister had manipulated her, that she didn't deserve to lose everything. Maybe she was right. Maybe Mom didn't deserve it. But she'd made her choice when she chose to believe my sister over me. She'd made her choice when she asked me to leave without ever questioning the narrative she'd been fed. Actions have consequences, and I was tired of being the only one shielding everyone else from theirs. Update 1. It's been a month since I blocked them, and the fallout has been worse than I expected. My cousin kept me updated despite my requests for her to stop, and I finally told her I needed space from the whole situation. She respected that, but not before giving me one last piece of information that's been sitting heavy in my chest. Mom had a health scare 2 weeks ago. Nothing life-threatening, but she collapsed from stress and dehydration and spent a night in the hospital. My sister apparently called every family member she could think of, trying to get someone to contact me, to guilt me into coming back. No one could reach me because I'd blocked most of them too by that point. I found out through a second cousin I'd forgotten I was still connected to on social media. She sent me a message saying she understood I was going through something, but thought I should know Mom was in the hospital. She didn't try to guilt me. She just stated the fact and left it there. I stared at that message for hours. Part of me wanted to rush to the hospital. Part of me wanted to call and make sure Mom was okay. But the larger part of me, the part that had been beaten down and dismissed and called a parasite, that part kept me in my apartment. I compromised. I called the hospital directly, identified myself as her son, and asked about her condition. The nurse told me she'd been discharged, that she was stable, that it was primarily a stress-related episode. I thanked her and hung up. I didn't call Mom. I didn't unblock anyone. I just sat with the knowledge that she was okay and tried to figure out how I felt about all of it. The truth is, I felt numb. I kept expecting the guilt to overwhelm me, to force me back into the situation, but it never came. Instead, I felt something closer to relief. Relief that I wasn't there to fix it. Relief that I wasn't the one coordinating care and managing crises and holding everything together while being resented for it. I talked to a therapist for the first time in my life around then. I'd been thinking about it since I moved out, and Mom's hospital visit pushed me to actually make the appointment. The therapist listened to everything and then asked me a question that's been replaying in my mind ever since. She asked me what I thought love was supposed to look like. I didn't have an answer. I'd always thought love was sacrifice. Love was showing up. Love was doing what needed to be done even when it was hard, even when no one noticed, even when you got nothing in return. But sitting in that office, I realized that what I'd been doing wasn't love. It was self-erasure. I'd made myself so small, so invisible, so utterly replaceable that when I finally left, they didn't miss me. They missed what I provided. That distinction changed everything. Update 2. 2 months out now, and the legal threats started last week. My sister hired a lawyer, or at least she claimed she did. I got an email from a Gmail address with attorney in the name, demanding that I resume payments on the house or face legal action for abandonment of a dependent. The email was poorly written and reeked of desperation, so I'm 90% sure my sister wrote it herself. I forwarded it to an actual lawyer, one I'd consulted when I first moved out just to make sure I wasn't legally obligated to continue supporting Mom. He confirmed what I already knew. I have no legal obligation to pay my parents' bills. I'm not on the mortgage. I'm not on any of the loan documents. And Mom is a competent adult who can manage her own finances. The fact that I'd been helping voluntarily doesn't create a legal duty to continue helping. He drafted a response that was professional and airtight, essentially telling my sister to pound sand. I never heard back from the fake lawyer email, but the family pressure intensified. An uncle I haven't spoken to in 5 years called me from a number I didn't have blocked and actually got through. He started the conversation sympathetically enough, saying he'd heard there was family drama and wanted to check on me. I appreciated that for about 30 seconds before he pivoted to telling me that family takes care of family, that I needed to step up, that Mom raised me and deserved better. I asked him how much he'd contributed to Mom's bills over the last 3 years. He stuttered something about being on a fixed income and not being in a position to help. I asked him why his financial limitations were valid, but mine weren't. He hung up on me. That conversation, as frustrating as it was, clarified something important. Everyone had opinions about what I should do, but no one was offering to do it themselves. It was easy to tell me to sacrifice when it cost them nothing. Through the family grapevine, I learned that my sister finally got a job. Retail, part-time, barely above minimum wage. She moved herself and the kids into a small apartment and left Mom alone in the house. Mom's living off Dad's pension and Social Security now, which apparently is enough to cover basic expenses if she budgets carefully. The house went into foreclosure, but a family friend who's a real estate investor bought it at auction and is letting Mom rent it back at a reduced rate. She'll probably have to downsize eventually, but she's not homeless. My sister, according to my cousin who can't help but update me despite everything, blames me for ruining her life. She tells anyone who'll listen that I abandoned the family in their time of need, that I'm selfish and cruel, that she's suffering because of me. She's rewritten the entire history to make herself the victim and me the villain. I don't care anymore. Let her tell whatever story she needs to tell. The people who matter know the truth, and the people who don't matter can believe whatever they want. Update 3. It's been 4 months since I left, and something unexpected happened last week. Mom reached out through my cousin with a request that I actually agreed to. She asked if she could write me a letter, a real physical letter, and have my cousin deliver it. She promised it wasn't about money or guilt. She just wanted to say some things. I was skeptical, but I told my cousin okay. The letter arrived 3 days later. It was 6 pages, handwritten, and it was the most honest communication I'd ever received from Mom. She didn't make excuses. She didn't ask for anything. She just wrote about how she'd failed me, how she'd let my sister's voice drown out reality, how she'd been so desperate to keep the peace that she'd sacrificed the child who'd actually been there for her. She wrote about finding old bank statements after I left and finally understanding how much I'd been covering. She wrote about the shame she felt when the car was repossessed and she realized I'd been making those payments for 2 years. She wrote about lying awake at night wondering how she'd been so blind. But the part that got me, the part that actually cracked through the numbness, was when she wrote about Dad. She said that after he died, she'd been so lost that she couldn't see anything clearly. She'd clung to my sister because her pain was loud and visible and demanded attention, and she'd overlooked me because I'd seemed fine, seemed stable, seemed like I didn't need her. She said she understood now that I'd been grieving too, that I'd been carrying everything alone, and that she'd failed me as a mother when I needed her most. She ended the letter by saying she didn't expect forgiveness. She didn't expect me to come back, or to help, or to fix things. She just wanted me to know that she saw me now, finally, and she was sorry. I read that letter 5 times. Then I put it in a drawer and didn't look at it for a week. When I finally responded, I kept it short. I wrote that I appreciated her honesty, that I was glad she was okay, and that I needed more time. I didn't promise anything. I didn't close any doors, but I didn't open them either. I just acknowledged that I'd received her words and that they mattered. My cousin delivered the response and told me later that Mom cried when she read it. Not sad tears, she said. Relief tears. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if I'll ever have a relationship with Mom again, or if I even want one. I don't know if my sister will ever understand what she did, or if she'll spend the rest of her life blaming me for consequences she created. What I do know is that I'm okay. I'm building a life that's mine, with boundaries that protect me, with people who see me and value me. I'm learning what healthy love looks like, and it doesn't look anything like what I left behind. The parasite they threw out found solid ground, and I'm never going back to soil that tried to bury me.